Wednesday, the 24th of February. Did you know that we have just started Fairtrade Fortnight? Now, had we been in church, I would have been bombarding you leading up to this point, telling you about Fairtrade Fortnight and buying in extra supplies to our stall that we have in the church and promoting it and asking you to buy even more. And also, of course, in our Kirk shop, where our team usually do a fantastic job. But of course, that's closed at the moment as well. So, Fairtrade Fortnight started on Monday the 22nd and runs through until the 7th of March. So that's 2 weeks in which we try to raise awareness of the Fairtrade products and also to raise awareness of the job that they do about cutting out that middleman and giving people a fair price for their produce. So, have you bought any Fairtrade products recently? Well, I have to admit that not so much for me, because normally I always buy mine from our church stall or from our church shop. That's where I buy nearly all of my Fairtrade products. You've got to go looking for them in the shop if you want to buy them in the supermarkets. But they are there, some of them, but not as much as what you can get in our church, that's for sure. Do you only buy your Fairtrade products, like me, basically from the church stall or the church shop? I know we can't get bananas, but hey-ho, don't worry about that. But is that when you really only buy the Fairtrade products? When I'm moaning at people to say, come on, you need to go and buy some more Fairtrade? Or do you consciously make an effort to buy Fairtrade products? Because I think it has to be a conscious decision to make. If you don't buy Fairtrade products, why is that? Is it the cost? Because I'd imagine most people tend to think of the cost first of all, because we do know things are slightly, ever so slightly more expensive. Is it because you don't like the products? Now that's a good point, because there are one or two products that maybe aren't just what you would like to taste or like to use. So for example, when I came to Forfar in January of 2011, within a few months we had immediately changed over to Fairtrade tea, coffee and sugar. Now, it took the church members 2 years, if not slightly longer. Can you imagine this? Over 2 years to tell me that they really didn't like the Fairtrade coffee. I couldn't believe it. They'd all been sitting there drinking that coffee and they really didn't like it. So we went and sourced other Fairtrade coffee, which we discovered they then liked. So if only you told me sooner. Anyway, we did manage to find another Fairtrade coffee that they liked. Now you get Fairtrade washing up liquid and you get Fairtrade soap. However, for me, I don't buy either of these products because they affected the skin on my hand. So unfortunately, I don't buy them. Other people have no problem with it. The church has no problem with it for their washing up. But for me, it affects the skin of my hands, so I don't have either of these products. So there's loads of things out there why you maybe don't want the product. Or is it, if you don't buy Fairtrade, is it because you don't agree with the policy of fair trade for people? Because maybe you don't agree with that. There's numerous reasons as to why. I think availability is probably the biggest one. I must admit that during lockdown, I've definitely not bought as much Fairtrade things as I usually do. But that, of course, as I've said, is because the church building has been closed and the church shop has been closed. I think also the fact that I don't really go to the shops. I'm very fortunate that Billy does most of the day-to-day bits and pieces of the shopping. He doesn't shop in Marks and Spencer's because he won't pay the prices, but that's my domain. But if I do go shopping, then I do try and make an effort to buy something along those lines. And I think also things like socks and clothes and other bits and pieces. Well, I tend to buy things like that online. And you can buy Fairtrade things online also. All you've got to do is type in the Fairtrade organisation and you'll get to their shop. And there's lots of things you can buy there and it can be delivered to your home. Our church is a Fairtrade church. Our presbytery in Angus is a Fairtrade presbytery. And Forfar is a Fairtrade town. And we all work together to bring that around. It's absolutely super. But what is Fairtrade? Well, Fairtrade is about better prices, decent working conditions, local sustainability, and fair terms of trade for the farmers and workers in the developing world. By requiring companies to pay sustainable prices, which must never fall lower than the market price, Fairtrade tackles the injustices, the conventional trade, which traditionally discriminates against the most vulnerable. It enables them to improve their position and have more control over their lives. With Fairtrade, you have the power to change the world every day. With simple shopping choices, you can get farmers a much better deal. And that means they can make their own decisions. They can control their future. And they can lead the dignified life that everyone deserves. There are over, are you ready for this? 1.66 million farmers and workers in the 1,411 producing organisations across the fair trade system. That's huge. 1.66 million farmers. Amazing. The UK is one of the world's leading fair trade market, with more products and more awareness of fair trade anywhere else. Almost 1 in 3 bananas, you heard me mention bananas before, almost 1 in 3 bananas in the United Kingdom are fair trade. And a few years ago, the UK spent, you're going to be staggered by this, 1.57 billion, sorry, billion, not million, billion, 1.57 billion in fair trade goods. Yay to Britain for that. Many people have said over the years that they buy local rather than fair trade. And fair trade responds to that, because let's be honest, our church definitely supports buying local. Fair trade's response to that is, why not do both? Because let's be honest, we could quite easily do both with the amount of things that we buy in our lives. And fair trade is just not about buying chocolate, although it is rather nice, or the bananas. They sell so much more. Food, soft drinks, wine, tea, coffee, sugar, herbs, grains, fair trade flowers, cleaning products, clothes, jewellery, gold. I didn't even know about that one. They actually sell gold. And beauty products as well. There is so many things that you can buy. What a lovely gift that would make if you were buying a birthday or an anniversary gift. You can go online and something different. Absolutely super. When I was working with World Mission and we took our trip to Nepal, where we had donated so much money to, both as a church locally here in East Dundalk, but also the Church of Scotland donated a huge amount of money to Nepal after the earthquake. Well, when we were there, I couldn't believe it. We went to just one of their fair trade shops. They have got about 3 in their main town. I couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. It had 3 floors. 3 floors, a whole shop dedicated to fair trade products. And Irene, Duthie and myself bought quite a few things in there and then brought them home here. Amazing. I just couldn't believe. I would love to have a shop as good as that locally here, or even in Scotland, I think. But what's fair trade got to do with faith? Because let's be honest, we're constantly pushing fair trade, especially in our churches. Well, here's a short verse for you from Micah. Micah chapter 6, verse 8. What does the Lord require of us? To act justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with our God. Micah chapter 6, verse 8. Faith groups are key supporters of fair trade, and thousands of churches make the connection between trade and poverty. And committing to using fair trade products, especially tea, coffee and sugar and biscuits, over the past 25 years have formed a central pillar to the fair trade movement. Because let's be honest, we are fighting against poverty. But we're not just handing money out. People are working and producing things in the fair trade system for us to buy. So it's not just handouts or give outs, they're physically working for what they get. And churches organise hundreds of events throughout the years, particularly now during the annual Fair Trade Fortnight. We would always, even in our own church, we would have prayers about Fair Trade Fortnight, asking for God's support and strength for them and for us to buy products from them. There'll be readings in churches about it, about fair trade, and it will always be mentioned normally in our worship at this time also. As I said, in our church, we always use the tea, coffee, sugar and biscuits. Quite a lot of cereal bars as well for breakfast. We have the fair trade stall every single week in our church and also in our shop when the building's open, of course. We put articles in our Steeple Times, which is our church magazine, again to raise awareness of fair trade, what they do, their products and the benefits that it does. We support fair trade at a presbytery level by being part of presbytery, and also when presbytery have their fair trade stall, we also support that as well. We work and support Strathmore Primary School with fair trade, especially during Fair Trade Fortnight. But again, sadly this year that's not going to happen. But we always have something with the school, whether we attend their coffee morning or whether they come to us or we help them with some goods, and myself going in and speaking at assembly about fair trade. There's always fair trade coffee mornings at this time of year, always. And why not? Fair trade mornings, and we would normally have the fair trade goods like the tea, coffee, sugar, biscuits. But people would bake using fair trade goods. We would buy the goods in, they would buy them and then make them. But we normally have lots of banana loaves because of the fair trade bananas, and also fruit loaves because of the sultanas and raisins that you can buy with fair trade goods. So that's just some of the things that we do. But it's so simple to support fair trade. It's so simple to put your faith into action. And that simplicity is to pray about it and just to buy some of the products. You don't need to buy all the time, but just pay that fraction extra and buy the fair trade products. So let's get going. Let's get our faith into action this week and next week, especially during this Fair Trade Fortnight. And let's buy some fair trade products. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead. God bless everyone.